special radiologist, there's gonna have something up there. It's really nice to see her. You know.
So that mic
Well, that's.
and this is picking up live right now, just so everybody's aware.
Actually stroke, so
Yeah.
it was.
Give you a warning. Keep your swears to yourself.
This was up at CD. You have a seizure.
What caused it?
For seizures. No.
I was talking really stupid.
Totally asleep. Yeah, I don't know.
When they put you in anesthesia for sure, when you're coming out of that, you can say crazy things.
I know I was awake because I was on the grass.
Oh, boy. Somebody's cooking for me, well taken care of.
Somebody's monitoring.
Yeah.
I don't want to question.
Somebody itself will do it by itself.
3 years ago, I slept so from I broke my ankle in 2 places, got 6 screws. I said, yeah, like February for the ACL in my knee and broke my wrist. So yeah, being home was. Would be nice, right?
So that's kind of one of those weird.
I've got a little PTSD myself with it. I'm like, have a floor now that's non-slip and I don't have to climb over the tub, it's like walk right in. Yeah. So it's a
That's
little bit
worthwhile.
safer, yes. Things that we used to take for granted, you know, kind of down a curb. It's like freezing out everyone's. Yeah.
You're stumbling. Your nose.
Little face plant. Oh,
All these damn errors across. I trip over them like.
and you didn't break anything, you're lucky.
My wrist. But it's like. Spread out. Hard on. The sheriff's and honors good job.
Mary answered. Mary said, I learned to read, but she said I haven't. With no resumption.
Door.
Oh, no.
Not that I was gonna say
Well, we appreciate your being here and getting it accurate. Most definitely. So it's Julie up to today.
My son and his girlfriend took one on vacation, like, leaving for like
I had good intentions when I got up this morning, but I don't know what happened.
Yeah, you might come back. I was gonna say, come back to a room to
Do anything. Your friend Janet's, they go.
Save my seat. I'll put that up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, yeah, better do that too. For sure, that would probably read more than anything, right?
Yeah, thanks. The guy sitting behind you. That's it. Right.
What do you think the odds are? Yeah. Okay.
So I just don't want you to have a big, so you know, what sure means that you're well.
My 920.
One of the ladies I worked with gave me stickers that are appropriate for me to wear at work, but are adult. So it's there. I remember it's free.
Maybe that place has the best food ever. They had like their main things. Like twice at the same place. Just the same kind of Hana, yeah. Did you do the road to Hana? Did you go around?
It was raining. And I did it myself.
And we were like, we're just gonna go for this. Well, how bad could it be, right? And then it was like the drop off.
Yeah.
I can picture the headline like, Wisconsin couple dies right here. I mean, as part of the stuff.
That happened. We did a helicopter thing.
Oh, I
So we did the helicopter thing, and then like a month later, we got back. A month later, we got crashed.
Oh, same one as you did?
It was a different company.
Why is it so humid in here? Sounds like a base place. Oh, it's like a terrible seat. Terrible. Those headlines were like the cover that you did. Yeah, that LP sports and stuff. It's been along pretty well in general.
Yeah.
Mine fight a lot, so and you're by yourself and for a long time. Lady.
Thursday night, we was car at home there.
Yeah, that was when I was there, right?
I was like,
Right out of
so you
the,
had a baseball game Friday night.
yeah.
It was actually Tuesday morning. We had two baseball games Saturday.
Oh, and don't you coach? So did she do it?
It's softball back then. Just in March.
Yeah, like 6 o'clock, like call the meeting to order. Roll call has been taken. Approval of the agenda.
How you doing?
Second.
Ms. Nelson, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried. Approval of the previous committee of the whole minutes.
I'll make a motion.
Moved by Mayor.
I'll second it.
By Hess. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried. Citizens input, we have signed up. We're gonna give 3 minutes, each to speak. So the first person on that list, how many do we have, Casey?
I don't know.
Okay, so Karen Lexer,
Karen?
Steve,
I don't know what I'm here for, but I'm here to try to talk to people in not abolishing the police department. I have been a citizen here since 1970. We've had police departments since, and I think we should continue it. And I think instead of 2 half part-time officers, we should have 2 full-time officers and 2 part-time officers. And I don't know what the mayor is trying to do here with him being elected officer or being a police officer at one time, what they are trying to do. But I'm just trying to tell you that we have other issues that should be taken care of instead of trying to abolish the police section. And I thank you for this time.
thank you. Ann Shermer,
I'm here as a pro-police police force to keep it in New Holstein. I've heard a lot of things from the constituents of the area. Yes, they want to keep it here. Mr. Conkle, you said, well, where do we save money? The answer is not here. Your constituents say, keep our police. Thank you.
thank you. Sue Neeson,
First of all, I don't know how many people know that this is Law Enforcement Appreciation Week from May 15th through May 19th. Today is the last day of the appreciation, and the kind of appreciation that the city of New Holstein wants to do is abolish our police department, and I think it's pretty pathetic. I handed out to all of you before you got here a little packet. I want you to see all the signatures of the people in New Holstein, and I was hoping to get it so that I had just your ward in your packet, but it got to be a little hard because we did a lot of across ward counting pavement. Out of all of those signatures that you've got, and they're double-sided, by the way, we had a total of 383 people that we polled. 355 of your constituents voted that they want to keep the New Holstein Police Department. 8 people out of 383 said no. And 20 people were undecided because a lot of them thought that it was maybe taken care of back in January when you voted 6-2 to keep the police department, yet did nothing to make that happen. They still have no contract, And I guess it's pretty sad. All I want to say to the elder people, and listen to your people. You're supposed to be voting for their voice, not your own voice, not the mayor's voice, but the vote of the people. They voted you into office, and they can vote you out of office. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Baldwin?
My name is Rob Baldwin. I've been a police officer here in New Holstein for 25 years. I just wish to share some thoughts about the current police department situation. Members of the police department have had some impromptu discussions with citizens and with each other. We wish to share these ideas in the hope that it could contribute to a solution that will ultimately result in the preservation of New Holstein PD. All the remaining New Holstein PD personnel are committed to keeping the PD. It amazes me that we have a group that still remains willing to stay and work here after so much opposition. And that is in a large part attributed to the citizen support we have received. If it was not for the citizens who have expressed their desire to keep and fight for NHPD, the officers of the NHPD would have thrown in the towel. Some thoughts and ideas that have been discussed at various times have included reducing the amount of coverage time NHPD provides and have Calumet County just provide emergency coverage during early morning hours, or seeking different contract options with the county other than a 5-year deal until the PD can be rebuilt. I understand the county recently said that they're only going to consider a long-term contract, which removes some of the options from the table. Some things to consider about the current state of the PD. We currently have 3 full-time officers. During April and May, our police liaison officer was able to stay in place at the school, and we had assistants filling shifts from Calumet County deputies. Deputies filled about 56 hours in April. During April and May, full-time officers averaged 7 to 8 hours of overtime per week. Part-time officers were used extensively, with one of them working 40-plus hours a week. A June schedule was put together that used only NHPD officers. This was possible because our PSL officer comes out of the school and works patrol. We were able to cover June even though one officer is gone 2 weeks for military duty and our PSL goes to 5 days of training. Overtime increased to about 10 to 12 hours per week for full-time officers, and one part-time officer also worked overtime. It will be difficult to have the PSL return fully to school duties unless we have gained staffing by the time school starts. But a reduced presence in the school come September may be possible with the PSL officer splitting duty time between school and patrol. I wish to present the plan that has arisen from ideas discussed with NHPD officers, officials, and citizens. The first part would be to appoint an interim chief. Every full-time officer on NHPD would be willing to accept this title. This would enable us to hire personnel. 2 part-time officers are willing to accept full-time employment immediately if it was offered to them. One of them was at one time on our eligibility list to be the next full-time officer hired. Next step would be to hire for part-time vacancies. We have one experienced officer willing to accept part-time employment with our city. Once we have determined that our staffing needs are somewhat stabilized, we can look for a chief. The citizens group that has been active in this cause has located a potential candidate for the chief's position who has 10 years prior experience as a police chief. And I did send out an email earlier today that had some affidavits attached to it. And one of those affidavits, I did express that my willingness to accept the title of interim chief if so selected, and that I do attest to my belief that the Holstein PD can be saved. It seems that since January 20th, when a long-term contract was presented to the city by Calumet County and the consultant Jeff Romer, that this is what certain elements of our administration have worked toward rather than the vote that was taken to rebuild the PD and hire personnel. I would call the hiring process that was attempted half-hearted at best. If the council voted to rebuild and rehire, why have those efforts stopped? And why are we back to the original option, the long-term contract with the county promoted by the consultant? It seems we have gone in a big circle with a crisis that was created from within just to fill an agenda that now has a monetary savings that can only be looked at with skepticism. We have been presented with ever-changing figures regarding how much the savings will be, and how can the citizens trust the numbers when they cannot be sure if they are correct. We understand it could be difficult for us to obtain vacation time for the foreseeable future, but we all understand the situation and are willing to make concessions to get through this tough time. We have already been switching days off, flexing days off, picking up the overtime in order to accommodate requests for time off. On the other hand, if we are absorbed by the Sheriff's Department, we stand to lose all our vacation time, sick time, and seniority. Therefore, in the short term, we understand we'll have to forego our flexibility that we are used to in order to have a positive long-term outcome. If we go with the Sheriff's Department for our employment, as it stands now, we will have no vacation time to even consider this year. This situation has been frustrating for a long time, and it is disheartening to see that good, qualified, and competent employees felt they had to leave because of the atmosphere here. While disbanding the police department changed the environment that caused employees to leave, is the police department the cause of the turmoil and unrest? Ponder these questions when you make your decisions regarding the future of our city. I hope that what has happened to our police department is the catalyst that will affect change in our city and we can experience a vibrant, thriving, and growing community. If that occurs, these struggles will have been worth it. If NHPD does cease to exist, hopefully those who have fought for it will know they did their best and their efforts are highly appreciated. Thank you.
On Antelope?
Lori.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I actually came up here tonight just to listen, but when I got here, I just wanted to say a few words. And Rob touched on a lot of the points. And I think the biggest thing is we need to look at our officers. Rob, Mr. Schrader, I'm not sure if there are any other ones here tonight, but they're the ones we need to look at and show them the respect that they deserve. They have stuck this out since November or whenever it started. They deserve to be here under the New Holstein Police Department, not under Calumet County City of New Holstein Police Department. They have served us, and they have served us well. And they have given up a lot in this last year to show that they are willing to stay here, that they're willing to sacrifice some time off and everything so that they can keep their vacation time, so they can have time with their families. They deserve to be here. I'm not afraid of what would happen if we went to Calumet County because I know we'd be protected. But that's not the issue. The issue is these officers have given their time for our citizens to keep us safe. And the savings, it's not there. It's not. Thank you.
Mary Ann Kuzinski?
Okay, when I was home, I didn't know what the heck I was going to say because I get a little nervous when I'm, now that I'm retired and don't have to talk to people. But anyway, I'm gonna read a letter, but before I read her letter, I must say how disappointed I was because this was done so quietly. And until it came to our knowledge back in July from people who don't even live in the city that the county was going to be taking over, or police department, I was PO'd in plain words. We have a darn good police department. They deserve better respect than what they're getting. Anyway, here's a letter and I'll try to make it fast. To whom it may concern, and I trust this concerns everyone in New Holstein. The last 68 months have been an incredible lesson in civics. I wish I could say in civility. That a vote of 6-2 passed to maintain the current police department contract with the sheriff's department on a short-term basis, 2 to 3 months, pursue hiring a chief, I'm gonna get dizzy, as well as building the police department. That decision was effective in January. To my understanding, Raymer, if I'm pronouncing your name right, from McMahon and Associates has done absolutely nothing to try to hire a chief and build the department. To my understanding, the Police and Fire Commission have not done anything as of November to hire a chief or build a police department. Why this lack of action is inexplainable, except for an expressed desire by some people in administration to disband the entire force in a mask agenda of fiscal responsibility. It appears to be anything but. Others will have shared how numbers just don't add up. Additionally, we have a current police department who have stepped up to the crisis, working together as a unified team to fill shifts from within. Alderpersons, I implore you to vote to maintain our current department accept the recommendations from our own officers, listen to your constituents who I believe you are supposed to represent, and dismiss McMahon and Associates immediately. The money that has flowed out of the city could have paid the wages for another officer or perhaps even a chief. Citizens of New Holstein are strong, resilient, and committed to preserving our autonomy, remaining fiscally responsible and supporting one another. Alderperson Hess and Alderperson Moser, I and 300 plus residents of New Holstein request you not to pass the resolution to abolish the NHPD. Rather, do your job representing your ward in the manner that your constituents expect. Alderpersons Wolfel, Schmitz, Conkle, Snelsons, Rather, and Meyer, are you listening? We are counting on all of you to represent us. Greater than 85% of a random sample want the New Holstein Police Department preserved, positions filled, and a full force to serve and protect. And thank you. This is from Mary Grohl.
Steve Abrams?
I'll echo one of the thoughts mentioned. Really are what has angered and frustrated many of the citizens here isn't the county. I think they've presented what they can do for us. Our frustration is with the council, with our mayor, and how this has been handled through the city. There are three basic points that are going to be made tonight from all the people that you've heard speaking. One is what the people and what your voters want, what the desire of the citizens of New Holstein is, and that's been made clear. There are two other issues that are driving this. One is that there's a financial gain to it, and due to time, I'll take my 3 minutes before the Common Council meeting to address that issue, because those savings aren't there, but I'll get into that. I've dug deep into the presentation. The other issue is that this is necessary because we're in a state of emergency due to our lack of police officers. The report from McMahon Associates says that we're considering contracting with the Calumet County because the city police department has lost their chief, their captain, and one of their full-time officers in the last 6 months. They have lost 3 part-time officers. We are entering into the summer. We'll be unable to adequately staff the department with trained officers. So the claim is we're in a state of emergency. This is fascinating when you consider that this group here are the ones who chased away our chief. This is the group that when our captain finally offered, when this group voted to keep the police department and our captain offered to be the interim chief, this is the group that refused that offer and drove our captain away. Then I read that after paying McMahon $70,000, or at least up to this point, I read about one of our part-timers that was hoping to be hired on full-time for the city. However, I was sent a letter from McMahon stating that the process has since been suspended. How do you claim that there's an emergency shortage of police officers when we have suspended our search for police officers? We've suspended our search for a chief. It's a little, it is the peak of hypocrisy to burn your own house down, to start the fire and then panic and cry fire. That's inappropriate. That's dishonest. We haven't offered a contract that would, we have done, this group has done everything they can to make sure we don't have an adequately staffed police department. And it can be fixed today. You heard the solution. We've got part-timers who are willing to be full-time as soon as you give them the go-ahead, as soon as you hire them. That would solve this emergency, wouldn't it? That would get us adequate staffing to find the rest of the part-timers or the chief that we need. So to claim that this is our only option is dishonest. And I'd like to point out one other thing. I noticed we've just had an election. We elected 4 new council members. I noticed not a single one of you ran on the fact that you want to get rid of the county, or get rid of the city and contract with the county. And that makes sense, because you wouldn't have gotten elected if that's what you campaigned on. And you may want to keep that in mind, because that would be dishonest. I fully expect we'd have at least 4 votes that we won't contract with the county. Thank you.
And Diane Reese?
Thank you. As you all know, I'm Diane Reese, and as he said, and I was the previous mayor. So I need that just to set a precedence. I would like to share a letter that was sent to our councilmen, and they already had seen this. A number of council members from, was sent to our council members from the state representative Timothy Ramthun. Because of my association with him in the previous, he reached out to me, and on Monday, wanting to know what in the heck is going on in the Holstein. So I'll read you the letter that he had sent to all of you, so all of you can hear this also. It says, Dear New Holstein City Council members, I'm writing to inform you that I do not agree with the desire of the mayor to dissolve the New Holstein Police Department. I stand with the people. The action to dissolve the police department and contract with the county should be done through referendum, period. The people are the ones paying for the services. They should be the ones making such decisions. I don't believe this move would be positive for the community, nor do I believe this is something the community wants. As such, I will help them in any way I can. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact my office. Sincerely, State Representative Timothy Ramthun, 59th Assembly District. And then, because we did have a few exchanges in text, I will read one of the things that I think is worthwhile everybody should know. I do see the issue as a local matter, yet am adamantly opposed to terminating local law enforcement. It'll be a huge blow to the community. If cost is an issue, the mayor should have reached out for funding options, as I may be able to help. Lastly, I'm hearing grave concerns about ethics issues, from meeting violations to consulting fees, to prevent the question from being on a referendum, like we've asked many times. I'll just follow up with a few things that I've come across myself. The Gettysburg Address is one of the best speeches in American history. As it says, that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that the government of the people and by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Aldermen, Ward 1, Jean and Francis, Ward 3, Richard and Renee, and 4, Bradley and Becca, and of course, 5th is Scott and Eric. The people of New Holstein are speaking to you now to keep our police department. You've heard it over and over tonight. You are supposed to be representing them. I will say that one more time, representing the people, not your own ideas. Thank you.
Kathy Schrader?
As a member of the community of New Holstein for almost 9 years, I must say that I am disappointed in our council regarding the current predicament with the police department. As a mayor or alderperson, your job is to represent the people who elect you and aim to do what's in the residents' best interest. On this issue, you have failed. The people have made it clear that they want a city police department, they want 24/7 coverage, and that the cost is not an issue. Back in October, the people put their money where their mouth is. Body cams were being cut from the budget. Our community raised thousands of dollars in just a few days. When this money was presented to the city, we were told that given the current situation, the money would be put into a general account. As this was not its intended purpose, the money was returned to the donors. This is the exact opposite of what you were elected to do. This all began with the proposal to save the city money, correct? When the numbers were challenged and there was remarkable pushback from the community members, a consultant was brought in to assess the situation and advise the council. He presented the council with several options and offered his advice on which option he would recommend. The council voted to move forward with the hiring process for a new chief of police. The next task the consultant was given was to recruit quality candidates for chief. If that was his task, why did the Police and Fire Commission deem the two applicants as not qualified? What steps were taken to recruit qualified candidates? The consultant seems to be pushing the agenda of moving forward with contracting with the county, despite the fact that you, the council, voted against that option. The consultant is not serving the best interests of our community. Far too much money has been wasted on his services. And if you are worried about saving money, that's an easy fix. The consultant is an unnecessary expense. So here we are, months into this process. No chief, no captain, barely enough officers to cover 24/7, thousands of dollars spent, and no resolution. Why no resolution? Because the mayor and council have lost sight of the objective, to represent the people who elected you and aim to do what's in the residents' best interest. You are getting ready to vote tonight to take action on this matter. Keep in mind that the people you represent have spoken loudly and clearly. Do not let their voices continue to fall on deaf ears. Save the New Holstein Police Department, rebuild it. It may not be easy, and it may not be a fast process, but it is what the people have stated they want, and it is what is in the best interest of the community and its residents. Thank you for your time and attention.
John Young?
This is just a prelude to the comments I'll make to the common council.
I'm excited! I am really excited! I got chills on me! This community has come together, people. It is absolutely awesome, and those officers back there have rallied upon the strength of this community. I would be so damn proud if I was the leaders of this community to rally behind this. Oh my word! And you're not a part of this. You can't celebrate in the joy that I have because you're anti. You're not a part of this enthusiasm, this compassion, this excitement that's in this community that's rallied together. Are you listening? There's national news that's willing to tell about the excitement that I have, about the excitement of this community as they rally and overturn a very contentious lack of integrity-driven council and mayor. Let me tell you, today I had an interview, okay? Believe it or not, I interviewed a potential police chief. Who the hell am I to interview a police chief? I was a part of 2 placement firms. Back in the 80s, I was a part of agri-management firm. I got paid only $1,440 to place a person, not $70,000 to get a placement. And in that particular time, I interviewed a lot of people. And over the years, I've interviewed thousands. So I interviewed a potential police chief. He is excited. The answers to his question wasn't the part that got me excited. Well, the answers that I got indirectly was what got me excited. The integrity of this individual was phenomenal. The longer I got into the interview, went on about 45 minutes, the more excited I got about this, but the more I got to understand the real issue, People, this is an integrity issue. This is an integrity issue, Brad. This is an integrity issue. This is an integrity issue. This is an integrity issue. This community understands integrity. This particular gentleman is one of 2 candidates that the Citizens Action Group have rallied. We have a 10-year veteran police officer that's interested in being interviewed by the Police and Fire Commission, not some flunky organization like this over here, but by the Police and Fire Commission that is in charge of this particular charge. This particular individual I know indirectly because he was the police chief in the community where my wife managed the convenience store for 11 years. She talks about him also in terms of integrity, conviction, and all the things that this group here represent. I'll conclude at this particular point and complete my comments at the end in the Common Council meeting. But I'm going to share one thing that I was going to wait to the end. Because of this rally, because of the people that have stepped up, we currently have a doctor in this community, a pastor in this community, and a senior consultant in this community that are interested in the mayor role. They've had enough of this nonsense, this insanity and so forth here, and things will change, let me assure you. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Moving on with the meeting, finance and purchasing, review the financials. Monthly invoices. And treasurer's report. Okay.
I have a question on the invoices, Scott.
Yes.
I don't have my damn glasses. Scott's lawn care, I know it's not a lot, it's $250 and it's for the lights and a lawn plant, what is that?
For the baseball lights, when they installed the baseball lights, I think it was to reseed the grassy area.
So why couldn't our public works department do that?
That I don't have an answer for.
Okay, that's my question, I mean, we know how to put topsoil on and plant grass, and that's part of their position. I'm thinking that that could have been done through, is Jason here?
No, he's not.
All right.
We have a motion to send the invoices to the council.
Motion moved.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion is carried. Treasurer's report.
I'll just come up here so you guys can hear me. So I provided you with the financials for the month. A couple of items to point out with revenue for April. We sold 26 area use permits. That would be for the ATV, UTVs. And we also have sold, actually up to today, we sold 4 non-resident compost permits, which is $853.32. We've sold 4 contractor compost permits, revenues of $1,137. We've also received $3,120 in donations for music in the park. I know that we're still looking for $1,000 to be donated to help cover the expenses. We received $840 to restock Langenfeld Pond with fish, and we received a $600 donation from the Soccer Association. The expenditures, the first item is something that I mentioned to you previously. It's going to be covered by the CARES Act aid that we're getting for the airport, was the replacement of the beacon of $6,453. And we also will notice that the forestry is over budget by $12,251 for the ash tree project, but that money will be reimbursed through our DNR grant. Are there any other questions on the financials?
American Rescue Plan, yeah?
Okay, so I'm not sure if most of you heard about the American Rescue Plan Act. The proposal I'm giving to you tonight is just preliminary. We have some time to really think this through on how we want to allocate that money. So this is something for you to take a look at. I'll go through it and then we'll come back in June and talk about it a little bit more. So on May 10th, the U.S. Department of the Treasury announced the launch of the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds established by the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 to provide $350 billion in emergency funding for eligible state, local, territorial, and tribal governments. The City of New Holstein will be allocated an estimated $306,000 as a part of the American Rescue Plan. Now, those numbers haven't been finalized, but they do expect to have those numbers released in the next few days. So just basing it off the 306, the Treasury has released 5 eligible use categories for the use of those funds. So number 1 is to support public health expenditures. 2 is to address negative economic impacts. 3 is to replace lost public sector revenues. 4 is to provide premium pay for essential workers. And 5 is to invest in water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure. So the city will receive the funds in 2 installments. The first will be within 30 days after the state receives the funding. I've heard that it's going to be around June 1st that we might get our money. The second half will come 12 months later. The law has been established that the funds received by the city must be fully allocated by December 31st, 2024, with any unallocated funds returned to the government. So it doesn't say that have to be spent, it just says that we have to allocate them to be used somewhere. I use the abbreviation here, so the ARPA fund should not be used to fund long-term expenses, as the local levy would not be able to carry these expenses in the future. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities is also recommending that municipalities don't lower their levy by the amount received, as this will have a long-term implications on our levy limit. So basically, don't use the money to fill a hole in your annual budget. So the city will be required to follow established GASB rules in tracking and maintaining the funds or expenditures. This includes the establishment of a separate bank account and the creation of a new fund within our accounting software. So this, like I said, is just a proposal. If you guys like any of the ideas, let me know. I can start to pursue them. If you want to wait and talk about it, future meeting, let me know. So we'll go through some of the topics or the ways to allocate the money. First is lost revenue and reimbursement of COVID expenses. So the city can reimburse the general fund for lost revenue from 2020. The city will need to designate these funds to be used for a specific purpose. So we can't just take the money and put it into our reserves. We can take the money and then allocate it to something else. So lost revenue is determined by comparing the revenue from 19 to 20, which includes items such as the lost revenue from business license fees. As some of you might not know, we reduced the liquor licenses last year to help the businesses. Lost revenue from renting community buildings and shelters. Lost revenue from AV fuel sales, that's at the airport. Payroll and covered benefits, expenses for those public employees while they were out of work for FMLA or COVID-related reasons in 2020. So our estimated reimbursement for this category is $88,000. The next would be additional COVID mitigation measures. This would include projects or expenses not yet incurred. COVID changed how we communicate with the world and provided us with a true picture on how our technology is lacking. It has been requested to provide remote meeting capabilities for the City Hall Council chambers. This project would provide live streaming, recording capabilities, and remote meeting access through Microsoft Teams. This would improve on the projection of meeting presentation documents to be visible to all council members with the addition of 2 new monitors. This would also be speakers and microphones would be provided to improve sound. This system is portable and can be moved to the fire station training room or to the basement of City Hall if we need more space. This upgrade would also benefit municipal court as they have a need to record trials. Additional remote meeting technology improvements for department heads are needed as well, and the estimated cost is $33,000. The third, I should stop and ask, anybody have questions on those two yet? So the next one would be utility bill assistance. Residents of New Holstein have faced hardships and lost wages due to COVID. This would pay off all past due residential utility balances as of close of business 5/1/21. This would include final billed accounts that are scheduled to go on the tax roll. The majority of these are for rentals, so this would assist landlords who would otherwise have to pay those fees. The estimated cost would be $28,000. The next would be the business license grant. This would be to reduce the amount of fees that we charge for the liquor licenses again this year. So if you look on the back of attachment A, it'll give you a snapshot to show you how many licenses we have in each category, and then the revenue we lost last year, and then the $2,600 we would lose again this year, but replenish with this money. The next category is the lodging grant. This would entail small non-matching grants to tourism or lodging entities that suffered economic loss as a result of COVID-19 closures or travel restrictions. Applicants would be required to provide proof of economic loss. Recommended allocation is $7,000 with up to $3,500 awarded in 2021 and the remainder awarded in 2022. And that would be a total cost of $7,000. The next option would be our COVID loan repayment. So in 2020, the city offered businesses assistance if they had lost revenue to keep their cash flowing. We had 5 businesses participate. To address negative economic impact due to COVID, the city could provide a grant to each of these businesses that would pay off their outstanding balance, which is an estimated total of $21,400. And I have on attachment B a summary of those grants and their outstanding balances. Okay, the next one would be for nonprofit grants. This would involve a non-matching grant to nonprofits with 501c3 status. It would be a first-come, first-served grant, and applicants would be required to provide evidence of revenue loss or financial impact due to COVID. Organizations that can clearly demonstrate that COVID has increased the client need and put pressure on resources even though revenue was not suffered may be eligible. So this would be allocating $30,000 up to $15,000 distributed in 2022 and the rest until the funds are depleted. So a total cost of $30,000. And then I think this is okay, 2 more. So the utility lead pipe replacement. New Holstein Utilities are currently working to upgrade lead service lines. The WDNR has informed NHU that all private and public lead service laterals must be removed in the city by October 8th of 2022. There's approximately 320 private LSLs that must be removed along with 100 and plus utility-owned LSLs. So 152 LSLs are scheduled to be replaced in 2021 at a cost of $590,200. NHU has applied for a grant in the amount of $553,500 to assist with the cost of this project, which leaves a gap financing of $36,700. Through this infrastructure improvement, the city could allocate $36,700 to provide assistance to NHU for this project, and if funds are not needed for other projects, in the city to allocate additional funds in 2022 or 2023 to assist customers and NHU in paying for this upgrade to remove lead service lines. Then the last option, this one is kind of a catch-all for all the funds. It's investing in housing, neighborhoods, and community. So if funds are not needed or desired to be used to provide additional funding for COVID relief, it's recommended that the remaining funds be allocated to a future low to moderate housing project, wastewater project, or to partner with the county on a broadband expansion program. Assuming that all other funds are allocated and expended as proposed, this would leave $147,300 for infrastructure, which would need to be expended before December 31st, 2024, and should be allocated after a review of established programs and a determination is made that we don't need those funds elsewhere. So the estimated cost, $147,300 for this category. The graph I provided will show you the $306,000 that we're expected to get. We are supposed to get a portion of it in 2021 and then another $153,000 in 2022. The darker grade section is showing the recoup of the lost revenue, but then also showing that it would be allocated to the infrastructure and housing project. Then it shows you the different allocations of those funds throughout the next 2 years. So all programs would require that entities certify the receipt of funds under these programs would not constitute double dipping via receipt of grant loans from other government or non-profit source. In addition, the city will establish a special revenue fund for the purposes of annual tracking of expenses and invoices. And also, there's other information coming out, but if we don't use the funds in these categories, we might be able to give them to other special purpose units like the school district. So like I said, this is just information for you to think about, and we can talk about it next month. I did provide you with a document that kind of explains briefly the different ways that you can spend those funds. And I guess, are there any questions?
So these are categories that you kind of put together and like put together where you thought maybe a good idea would be to put everything, or are these
Following the criteria,
Right.
just brainstorming on different thoughts that we could be using the money for.
So there might be other, these are your top wish list of like where you'd like to see it?
Just a starting point.
There's more
It
options.
depends, you have to follow the criteria of what they say. So there's a maybe 10-page document that you can go through and really break it down, and they expect to have more information coming out in the future to help us work through this. So this is just a starting point.
I think it's great.
Any other questions on it?
Okay, thank you. Meeting attendance requests? And a motion to approve.
No.
License applications, none. Park use and special event application, Trinity Soccer Tournament, Kiwanis Park, 924 and 925.
Make a motion to move that to council for approval.
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carried. Protections of persons and property, monthly report. Olin?
All right, just wanted to summarize a few incidents that occurred in the city the last several weeks. So a couple of the incidents that jump out to me are some of the drug-related incidents. One of those was a drug overdose. Some of that individual was identified, obviously, and then those charges for drug paraphernalia and drugs were referred to the DA's office. A few traffic stops that resulted in some marijuana arrests, and there was also a Delta 8 investigation. Now, Delta 8 is kind of a new drug trend, or I should say drug trend. It's a relatively new trend related to vaping. It's very popular among kids. Delta 8 is actually a legal product, but it has a lot of the same characteristics as Delta 9, which is THC, or the illegal content of THC, but it currently is legal. So it's kind of an issue with us. There was an investigation with that, and then that individual got arrested on some other charges as well. So actively looking into some of those cases. The other one is the recent theft at the laundromat. 2 nights ago, there was an individual that broke into 2 dryers and took the coin boxes, as well as the coin boxes from like the small vending machines, like the gumball and the candy machines. We have that out on our Facebook page. We have some video of him. Still actively looking into that one. Lastly, just talk about the schedule and filling open shifts. So in May, coming into the month, there's 51 open shifts. So if you think of May has 31 days, 3 shifts a day, would be 93 shifts. Coming into May, there's 51 of those shifts were open or vacant. The part-timers filled 33 of those shifts. The full-time officers filled about 11 of those shifts. And the Calumet County deputies filled about 7 of those shifts. Just kind of a summary of the staffing for this past month.
Very much. nothing for city buildings and grounds. Recreation director, personnel, old business, new business, none, so the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
We're gonna put out a notice for this meeting, so you can sign up if you want to speak to the common council.
We started a new sign-in for the next meeting.
We get a minute to get a water if we want, or? Right up there.
You can sit on your lap, right?
Sorry, I'll.
It was a bigger room than auditioning.
I know what happens when you don't have a.
If you have a minute, this time I think it is. Business with you, I don't think. We do.
Meeting in a minute.
Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry.
Roll call's been taken. Look for a motion to approve the agenda. However, I'd like to remove the resolutions 1475, 76, and 77 so that those individuals can be invited to a later meeting.
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the elimination of those three items.
Motion by Wolfle, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Schmitz. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Look for approval of the previous common council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Conoco,
I'll second.
second by Mayor.
Debate.
Discussion?
Discussion. Is that for April 1st?
Correct.
There is a part in line 3, a motion was made by Busma, seconded by Schmitz to agree on a proposed short-term, it says intergovernmental jurisdictional agreement for shared services between the city of New Holstein and Calumet County Sheriff's Office, and we need to work on a Plan B for a long-term agreement for contract police services between the city of New Holstein and Calumet County upon the call of the motion. I would like to strike out intergovernmental jurisdictional agreement and insert short term, and strike out need to work on a Plan B to talk later on a Plan B.
Does that need a second?
Yeah, but Mr. Busma came in and clarified, and that's what he indicated was said.
Well, I know there were several of us that heard the motion. And there was a big discussion because it was changed and recorded and posted. That was to work on a long-term contract for the county. Now, his motion was, Bob Busma's motion was to approve a short-term shared services between the New Holstein, the city of New Holstein and Calumet County Sheriff's Department, and we need to talk on a Plan B for a long-term agreement later. That's what was said. That was what was in the newspaper, and that's what other people had witnessed. As well as I had other people signed affidavits that they said they heard that.
And the reason that we made an issue of it at the last common council meeting was because it changes the trajectory of what brings us here today with the decision that is in front of us. The wording does matter. That's why we didn't approve them at the last meeting.
I also spoke with Bob, and he said what was reflected in Casey's minutes was his intent on the motion.
But when they went to approve that and what was said, they approved a whole total different demeanor of a motion, the count, and then it got brought back up for discussion to be tabled, to bring Mr. Busma back in front of the council to talk about it. So I think that, that was said, it was gonna be brought back into the council to discuss. If you're gonna change a motion, it needs to be in front of us.
I recall the comment was made to check with Busma. I don't remember it being brought in.
The council should talk with him, then he should do it here in front of all of us, not in front of a couple people.
I don't believe it was the council. I believe Casey was gonna talk to him and confirm what his motion was.
Well, he didn't talk to myself. Who did he talk to?
He talked to Casey, and I trust what she's relaying.
The council is the one that.
Alderman Myers also talked to him, he indicated same.
Well, he should have talked to us too. That was the council.
I have documentation there with Jeff that shows when he came in, the date he came in.
Does he have a sworn affidavit?
No, he does not.
Motion to table these minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, discussion.
Are we going off that motion or the first motion that was brought forward?
We didn't have a second on this first motion. So, I'll look for a roll call vote.
That's right.
And what is this for, to table the
It's to
April
table
1st?
the April 1st meeting.
Bring Busma in.
Okay, so I have Wolfle,
Yes.
Schmitz,
Share with me again what we're referring here as far as the vote is concerned.
Alderman Snelson would like to have former Alderman Busma present to discuss the meeting minutes.
No.
Rather,
Yes.
Snelson,
Yes.
Hess,
No.
Mosier,
Yes.
Kunkel,
No.
Mayor.
No.
So you have a tie.
No.
So we need a vote on all the other meeting minutes that are presented. It's March 17th, March 24th, April 1st, and April 20th. You have a first and a second on these.
We need a motion on all three or individually?
This would be to approve, you have a first and a second to approve the minutes as presented. So you just need a discussion and vote.
Who made the motion?
Kunkel and Mayor.
Okay, so, discussion?
Verification. Is that all the minutes now that we're approving on, or is it just?
It would be March 17th, March 24th, April 1st, and April 20th. If you want to do them individually, you have that option as well.
Individually.
Is that a motion?
Move motion to do approval of the minutes individually.
Second?
Second.
Second by Rather, discussion? Roll call?
Wolfle,
Aye.
Schmitz,
No.
Rather,
Aye.
Snelson,
Aye.
Hess,
No.
Mosier,
Aye.
Kunkel,
No.
Mayor.
No.
No. So I'll look for a motion to approve. We have the motion to approve. Any discussion on all of them? Roll call vote on all of them. March 17th, 20th, and April 1st.
March 17th, March 24th, April 1st, and April 20th.
March 17th, March 21st, April 1st, and the last one,
April 20th.
April 20th. Any discussion? Roll call?
Wolfle?
Aye.
Schmitz?
No,
That's to approve the
To
minutes.
approve.
what's that?
We're approving all the minutes at once.
All of them, okay, yes.
Rather?
So this includes April 1st, correct?
Correct.
Nay.
Snelson?
No.
Hess?
Yes.
Mosier?
No.
Conkle?
Yes. Yes.
Mayor?
Yes.
Motion carries. Citizen input? Sue Neeson?
I know most of the people that were here for the committee of the whole, so I don't want to be too repetitious. The packet that I gave you with all the signatures, on the top of that is like an interactive map that we did. All of the little green dots on there are the households that said yes, that they want to keep our police department. The reds are no's. I think the only two that's on one side would be Fran and Jean. I was able to get your ward kind of squeezed into one page. Everyone else, you've got a flip side because the words are kind of weirdly shaped. But you'll notice just looking at those, we've been accused by the mayor of taking choice houses and, you know, stopping at the ones that we thought maybe were in favor of keeping the police department. I just want you to know, we did random. We went down streets, we knocked on doors, some people weren't home, we kept going, sometimes we came back. We did what we could in getting them, but if you look at those maps, there are a whole lot more green dots on your maps than red. As I had mentioned earlier, 355 green dots said yes to keep the police department. Only 8 no's are on there, and 20 that were yellow that were undecided. I didn't hit on the second question at the earlier meeting, and that was that the negotiations committee should offer a 3 to 5 year contract for our officers. I know 5 is kind of a stretch, but I know 3 was usually pretty much the norm. I was a police officer's wife for 14 years in the city of New Holstein, and it was almost always at least a 3-year contract. When you voted on January the 20th for those of you that were on the council and voted to keep the police department, to look for a chief and to build the department back up again, I just totally lost my train of thought. Sorry, I should have wrote it down, but I didn't. I wanted it to come from the heart tonight. But you voted then to save the police department, but yet the negotiation committee has done nothing to get that 3-year contract, and there's no way. How can you expect to find a chief or even get officers to come in when you're only offered? They don't know if they've got a job a day from now, a week from now, or a year from now. They're working without a contract now, and even if you gave them a year from now, you know, you've got to work with them to do something that's going to actually do what you said you were going to do. We were going to look for a chief and build a department. It's got to start with the negotiations committee. You've got to offer them a 3-year contract. And again, I just want to end it, Officer Voland and Sheriff Wiegert and our officers in the back, thank you for all of your service that you give us. Totally appreciate the law enforcement and respect you, gentlemen. And I think that all of you should do the same when it comes to voting on item number 6, to discuss and take action regarding the possible abolishment of the City of New Holstein Police Department. Remember who you're voting for. Thanks.
As a citizen here, I did not grow up here. I was brought into this town when I met my wife. I met Mr. Hebel. Seemed like a really nice guy. I was stand-up. I've met officers that are standing here today. I have unfortunately met them through mental health issues I've had or other contacts I've had with them. I love seeing them. There's times that there's officers that are on the force no more have stopped by my house, see me outside. Hey, Brad, how are you doing today? I know them. I know my name. They know me. We start bringing in other officers that aren't from the area. A lot of our citizens are not going to feel comfortable just openly talking to them about what's going on in their life. I don't know if Mayor Hebel's got an underlying agenda to bring the sheriff's department in here, but I don't think it's a good choice. That's all I have to say.
My name is Rebecca Abrams, and I would like to remind the council of one of the greatest responsibilities of an elected official. Alderpersons are to represent the people who elected them. You are responsible to the citizens of New Holstein. We have elected you to represent us. We want our voice heard and to be represented on this police issue. Mr. Conkle, Mr. Meyer, you're my aldermen in Ward 5. The citizens in Ward 5 have spoken through the survey, and they overwhelmingly support keeping our police department. You, Mr. Conkle, and Mr. Meyer, I'm sorry, I don't know how to say it. You represent me. You represent the citizens of Ward 5. You do not represent the mayor. You do not represent your own interests, but the interests of the citizens of your ward. Speak for me. Speak for the many citizens of your ward. Give us a voice at this table. Vote to keep our police department.
Steve Abrams.
Looks like there's about, besides the people here, there's over 60 people watching on the Facebook stream, so pretty well-attended meeting. I can't let one thing go. The intent in a motion is irrelevant. You have to document the motion correctly. You have to restate it before you vote on it. This is how you avoid this. It doesn't matter what your intent is on a motion. It matters what was said. And I don't want to get any more into it. It's just absurd that I would have to explain that. Talking about the numbers, because this is a big issue driving this, is the numbers. And I'm referring to the sheet. I believe this was posted on Facebook. I don't have Facebook, but that's my understanding. The comparison, the most recent comparison of the city and the county, that shows a savings of $105,000 roughly. Well, I started digging into those numbers. I wanted to know where they came from. Let me start with something really obvious. The total for the county, $846,000. Our 2021 budget for the entire police department is what? It's $838,000. Well, now there's a real quick comparison. Your budget for the entire police department for 2021 is already $8,000 lower. So why are these numbers, why are we comparing this to $950,000 when our current police department budget, everything included, including crossing guards, which we know the county hasn't signed up crossing guards yet, that's not included in their program, that's all $838,000. So how did we get here? How are we at $950,000? I checked into it. You start at the top. Salary and fringe benefits. We're showing $613,500 for New Holstein. A savings from the county of roughly $100,000. That doesn't come from the budget. If you go to the budget, our total is $535,000. That includes the liaison officer. Here's what it also includes. It also includes the $50,000 we get reimbursed from the school, which is included in your council budget for the police department, but is not included here in this comparison. That seems a pretty obvious mistake. 50 grand right off the top. That's not good. And so instead of $100,000 savings, our total, all the officers included, not part-time, $535,000. That's a $179,000 difference.
Steve, can you wrap it up? Your 3 minutes are
All right. Squads and maintenance, I left that the same. I assumed the 24,000 was on average, even though it doesn't reflect this budget, so I didn't mess with that. I totaled everything else up under operating expenses. Part-time, I just took everything in your budget, so I didn't miss anything. I totaled it all up, $256,771, not $279,000. There's another $23,000. My point is, if you use numbers from your own budget from this year, this is a wash. And you leave in the 24,000 average, this is a wash. Trust the numbers. That's what I heard at the last meeting. Don't you trust the numbers? Well, should we?
Thank you, Steve. Ben Purnell. Ben Purnell.
Hello, Council. Mayor, I'm Ben Purnell. I'm here tonight just because I don't want to lose my police department. I really don't. I work on the road. I am constantly gone. I worry about my wife at home. She's by herself, you know. We have self-protection, but I don't want to have to rely on that. I really don't. Honestly don't. Now, I understand you try to cut costs. I understand that. Do it somewhere else, please. Thank you.
Hello again. It's going to speak kind of off the cuff. One of the good things that's occurred out of this is I've actually gotten to know some of the council members a whole lot better this year. And part of that's because I've worked nights my whole career for the most part. So I don't get to see a lot of you in a normal setting. I'm out after 11 o'clock, so unless you're out carousing, I might not run into you. But I've gotten to know some of them, more so than I have in the previous 24 years that I've worked here, and that's been a good thing. But I would encourage the council to get to know your officers more, get to know them better. Educate yourself about what takes place in a police department. Don't just come to a meeting and look at numbers and figures and cast your votes based solely on that. I would encourage you to do a ride-along. Pastor Dave Damcott was a civilian. He came to be our police chaplain. He started doing some ride-alongs with us, and it can be very eye-opening for a citizen to actually be in a squad car and go on some calls with an officer and see what we really do and what we're all about and see how we handle things and have an officer explain to you why we do certain things that we do. It can be very, very eye-opening, and it can help you see through the eyes of a police officer what our job can be like. Give us the tools that we need to succeed here. If you give us what we need to succeed, we will succeed. The county is going to provide 6 officers if you enter into a contract with them. We currently have 5, and we know of one that we could hire. We can fill a schedule. We can fill a schedule with 5 officers and a part-timer. If county can do it with 6, we can do it with 5 for a short time until we get back up to full staff. There's no reason why we could not do this if you get behind us. Officers Chuck, Mike, Corey, Carter, these guys have stuck it out through the worst year that our police department has had that I could ever imagine. They're still here. If you can count on them to stick it out through this, what situation could you not count on them to help you out with, to protect your family, to put their life on the line? That's the kind of people that we have here working for our police department. And we want to stay here. We want to serve you. And there's a possibility that we still could be with the sheriff's department, but we know what the citizens want, and that's what we want to provide them. They want to have their own police department. We are willing and able to do that if you give us the opportunity and give us the support that we need.
of the council members and the mayor, that they deserve our respect. And one thing that I thought about when I sat down was a meeting, I don't know if it was at the firehouse or what it was, at the hearing. But my alderman, Fran Schmitz, had said something that kind of was bizarre to me about how he needed to reflect on the majority of his constituents and what they were feeling. Look, alderman, look behind me. Are any of you here to say you want our department to go to Calumet County?
No.
There you have it. Listen to them.
Well, on the council and as a citizen, but being on the council, it's important to know your audience, the people you represent. So, and I remember we had a history teacher, Mr. Zagrodnik, back in 8th grade. He was an alder person, ironically of 3rd Ward. And I remember him saying, you need to go door to door and talk to your people. Find out what they want. And I can't believe it, 20-some years later, I'm an alder person because of my 8th grade history teacher. So by going door to door and talking to the people, you get to know what they want. I represent them. And if they say yes, no, undecided, or whatever the majority says is what you're supposed to do. Because I represent, as an elected official, I represent them. So in my ward, I stopped by roughly 51 people. There was one person didn't want to say what they wished. That's fine. I had maybe 2 people that were undecided, and 3 people that wanted no. They accepted they would rather have the county take over. But 47 of them said they wanted to keep the Holstein Police Department. That's like over 90% of them saying they want to keep the Holstein Police Department. Now, I only did what I was taught at New Holstein grade school, middle school, I guess you could say. I represent the people. And if the majority said no, then I would go with the majority. It's not about my decision, it's about what the people want. If I had enough time, I would have interviewed everybody. But time constraints, work, I was unable to do that. But needless to say, I did go out and I did talk to my people. And I heard what they had to say.
I've done a lot of talking over the past few months, so I put together a presentation because I felt like it could, a visual would be helpful. I have it on the thumb disk if there's any way to put it on the screen. I'm not prepared for that. That's okay. I have it printed also. I was hoping that everybody could see it, but I had asked to be on the agenda myself so that I could be, have it be prepared to be on the screen, and I was told I needed to sign in and talk as a citizen. So here I am. I think it's actually fitting that I'm speaking as a citizen to you today because that is how my journey here started. And if nothing else, we are all on a journey together. And I started speaking up at the end of the summer, early fall, when it came up that this was something that was being discussed by the council. And I was alarmed that the people that live in New Holstein had no idea at that point yet that it was going to be discussed. A decision this big for our city should have been a referendum. It could have been in November. It could have been in April. It wasn't. That is why the people behind me, including myself before I was elected, knocked on doors and asked people what they would prefer to have done. This is interesting because I had the best day today because I was able to look through some archival information about our police department and what is important to me. I am not a numbers person. I'm not gonna go line by line through a budget and pick it apart. I am a people person. I care about the story. We have a story here. We have a department that started in 1926, our New Holstein Police Department. We have amazing photographs of all of our different departments over the years. We have had 11 chiefs in that time, which actually doesn't seem like that many in almost 100 years, which shows that we've had dedicated chiefs who have served us. We've had dozens of officers within our community raising their children alongside of us. I went to school with Officer Stefani, who served our department for many years. That's comforting. That's wonderful. That's special. You don't have that when you have a bigger county coming in to do your policing. Would we have coverage? Yes. That was never what I was worried about. I agreed with the people in my ward when I went around before I was elected to ask what they thought. We have community policing here, which is special because that is what is lacking in many places in this country. When you have the lack of a community policing, which means that the people within the community are the ones doing the policing, to speak to what one of the residents said, then I think worse things might happen because they might not know the full story. And that's when tempers flare, and that's when things happen because they don't know that person that they're standing across from. A domestic dispute, they don't know the background. One interesting thing I found was that in 1984, there was I heard your alarm, I'll wrap up. There was an alderman, Deppis, who they wanted to see if they should outsource the 24/7 dispatch, the third shift dispatch, to the county, which has since happened, but it took about 20 years, and it was because somebody had retired, and I think now third shift is covered by the county. But what happened was there was a referendum. And at that time, 1,144 people said they wanted to keep their third shift dispatch, and 312 said no, they didn't. And 7-0, the council voted the next meeting after that referendum to keep the third shift dispatch. And I would like to read a quote, and then I will wrap up. Alan Deppis, who chaired the communications committee that looked into outsourcing it, said he voted to keep it, even though that's not what he wanted. He said, I guess I'll vote according to the wishes of my constituents. My personal opinion doesn't matter at that point. That was 1984. I hope that this council can emulate that council and follow the lead of what the people of our city want. And I will finish with a quote that I found that I thought really summarized it well. It's on the last page. Believe me when I tell you this, the easiest choice is always the wrong one. Choose the path that matters in the long term, the choice that would never hurt others. It might seem difficult at this point, but the right choice is the one that takes the most courage. It's the one that seems impossible at first. We've been told that rebuilding is impossible. I fervently disagree. We are smart people who can come together and figure this out. We do not have to abandon the history that we have for almost 100 years. We do not have to abandon it. We have the infrastructure, we have the people, we have the cars, we have the uniforms. That will never get rebuilt. So tonight is the night that we get to decide what we want to do, and we have a choice, and I hope that we make the right one.
Mine is, say what? It is, it's a change of pace. This is gonna be completely different. I just, on number 10, we're talking about under new business, designating a future dog park. And so that's, it's way different. So what I wanted to bring forward is that dog park has been brought up since way back in the 2017. We had a City of New Holstein comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. In that plan, the new park that is, you saw the big picture that we have, that new park at that time in this plan was to be a regular park area for the people down at Jordan Lisa Lane area. And that's how it was designated, because that park also would be part of a what they call the interurban trail that connects Chicago to Green Bay. And I had been on a committee, so did Randy Jacobs. We were trying to find what would go through New Holstein in order to do that. You know, of course, this is a little bit of a fantasy, but you got to plan down the line. And that New Park was gonna be part of it as a drop-off. They might have put bathrooms down there, cause there is, access to that. And for bikers to go, walkers to go. And that's where the long-term plan is. So the bottom line is and as far as dog park, the only thing that's in this book is to be in the Kiwanis Park that was supposed to be designated as a skating rink that never happened. So that was the only place where that was. So when we talk dog park, I would like you at number 10, when you talk about it, I would like you to open up your mind and change the wording in the motion to specify to not specify the new park, which is, was gonna be a park, as possibly the only thing, but add new park, and then what you see there, it is our tree nursery. We're on Monroe on the north side. That, I talked to our Public Works, Jason, he said that would be very good because it's no land right now, and it's got trees, and and it's almost to the end of life of taking trees off. So the bottom line is, when you come up to that one, can we not just specify the new park as being a dog park, as maybe looking into it a little deeper? That's all I'm asking.
Diane, since it's on the agenda, have you talked to any of the neighbors up in that area about?
I have not, and because when I was working on this, it was all in progress, and I was looking at different aspects. I was working with Jason in laying out the dog park like it is in Kiel, and just doing a lot of research. So this is a whole work in progress that you guys are gonna have to do.
Thank you. John?
You know, as I sat here and listened tonight, I've changed my positioning numerous times. This final concluding speech is about values. So I asked you about one word that's come up numerous times tonight. What is integrity? Okay? I'd ask you how you would describe this group back here. Pride, unselfish commitment, community-oriented, etc. We could go on and on. How do all of you describe yourself? I was going to stay very focused, but something just happened in this meeting which identifies part of the issue. But granted, remember, I was going to be very focused and positive tonight, and I was not going to be. Let me tell you about integrity. Let me describe an exhibit you just seen about integrity. A councilman makes a motion to table a motion. And what does the chair do? He sways the vote by saying it's to bring in another individual to clarify the motion. That had nothing to do. So we swayed the vote of these councilmen thinking that was the motion. The motion was simply to table the motion. It had nothing to do with that. That's integrity. That's a lack of integrity. Okay? So anyway, I am very proud. I am very proud. I come to you not as an individual, but as a person very proud of being in this community. And I actually had chills numerous times today as I visited with people, as I traveled about 300 miles with an Amish couple touring around the state of Wisconsin, as I visited with a number of individuals. But the greatest shivers that I had was in talking to our next interim police chief. That man stepped up, and he stepped up because all of these people stepped up. He stepped up because of the courageousness of Sue, who brought me into this because of her article in the paper, and because of this gentleman who very objectively reported on that. I am very proud to be a part of this. I will stand with great pride behind our new interim police chief. And I think the two potential candidates that we have will knock your socks off. I ask the commission to step back up, regain their control of their responsibility, and interview the two candidates that we have to present to you. Officer Rob I couldn't be prouder to listen to. You seen me stand up. I am excited to have a leader like that. Before the meeting, he says, "John, I'm nervous, I'm scared." Well, that's your humbleness, Rob. That's your humbleness. We love humbleness and so forth. But you listen to him speak with confidence and so forth. He is now our leader in charge. He is the one that this community is rallying behind. And these part-time officers have stepped up. They're willing to that. We have others that are capable of doing that. but they respected him. Respect, it's a value, it's a respect. They respected him as the senior, okay, thank you. Please, vote with integrity and vote with values in mind.
Okay, moving on, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Hess, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Schmitz, any discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. New business, action on mayor's appointment. Craig Carey is our emergency management director. We have on the charter a position for assistant emergency management director. And I would like to nominate Chad Hallbach. He's a firefighter, lieutenant, how many years? Approximately? I don't know, 10, 15 years, lives in the city, pretty much raised here. EMT, EMT first responder, how long?
About the same.
Okay, so I'll look for a motion to approve my appointment, Chad Hallbach.
So moved.
Second.
Moser, second by Snelson, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I tabled 1475, 76, 77, so we'll move on to resolution 1478, approve the commitment and assignment of fund balances. Casey, do you have anything?
So this is a process we have to go through when we're going to take money and set it aside for a specific cause. At the end of the year, if it's not set to a reserve account, it goes into the general reserve, the general fund. So this is a resolution that you'll pass to say we're gonna take the funds that April is raising for the music in the park and her different activities and put it into this reserve account so that she can continue to build and use on it year to year. Does that make sense? Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 1478.
Motion by Wolfle,
Second.
second by Snelson, any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I'll look for a motion to adjourn and to reconvene in closed session to consider employment promotion. Back up to discuss and take action with first presentation of ordinance number 655, an ordinance annexing territory to the city of New Holstein from town of New Holstein.
So some of you know about the big development that's gonna be occurring in tank number 4. We are in the process, we finalized the development agreement, and this would be taking that acre of land that we need to bring into the city because of this resolution or ordinance review.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion move.
I'll second it.
Motion by Snelson, second by Hess, any discussion?
Casey's in that first presentation.
I've asked for it to be the first presentation only.
No discussion, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now I'll look for a motion to adjourn and to reconvene in closed session to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation of public employee, and deliberating or negotiating the purchase of public properties, the investing of public funds, or the conducting other specified public business. Whether competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Per Wisconsin State Statute 1985, 1C and E, specifically for the following purposes: update on collective bargaining negotiations within the Holstein Professional Police Association Local 473 WPPA. Motion by Mr. Conkle.
Second.
Second by Mr. Meyer. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?